Some say that alongside this see-it-to-believe-it world is the shadowy realm of the supernatural. Sometimes the residents of that dimension touch us, and in one moment, our lives are changed forever. America's Lady of Supernatural Thrillers, Mary Ann Pohl, is your real Ghost Chatter host. On this podcast, you'll hear stories by real people who have seen real ghosts. Once in a while, Mary Ann will podcast a tale taken from the genre she loves best, the supernatural. Welcome to today's Real Ghost Chatter episode.
Have you heard about Anchor? If you haven't, I'm here to tell you it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free, and I mean free. I haven't paid a dime to produce or distribute my podcasts. There's a creation tool that allows you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. How easy is that? Podcast distribution can be a headache, but not with Anchor. Anchor distributes your podcast for you, so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and many, many more. As a bonus and not an obligation, you can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. Anchor has everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Welcome to Real Ghost Chatter. I'm Mary Ann Pohl, America's Lady of Supernatural Thrillers, a charter member of a wonderful group of authors called Author Masterminds, and your host on Real Ghost Chatter. Today I'm excited to have Paul Lahm on the show again. Paul, if you remember, is a founding member of the Victorian House Ghost Guild in Millersburg, Ohio. Growing up as an empath with clairvoyant abilities, he has always been interested in the paranormal. In recent years, Paul has focused on mediumship, energy medicine, and helping his family and friends. You can find more about Paul and the Victorian House on Facebook at V as in Victor H Ghost Guild. If you go to Facebook, search for that, you will find them. Welcome back, Paul.
Thank you, Mary Ann. It's good to be back.
It's good to have you back. Last time we talked about dowsing rods and how you communicate with spirits. So I'm wondering if you can expand on this a little and tell us about how things developed with you. So you receive messages from those who have crossed over, and also how the dowsing rods seem to play a role in that.
Yeah, the dowsing rods, I believe I talked about this in the last time that we talked, but they kind of came to me, when I was working at the Victorian House and being involved in the Ghost Guild. These rods actually came to me from the outside. I mean, I didn't go buy them. They ended up being in a house that my father had purchased, and he said, "Do you want these?" And I said, "Absolutely." And that house was actually very close to the Victorian House. So they kind of came to me, and I think that for me, in this communication, with the departed, those rods it just kind of evolved. And just honestly, in the last few years, I mean, I've had visitations and I've had experiences where, some of my grandmother and stuff had come and visited me. With the rods, we started using those to try to talk with what we call the resident spirits of the Victorian House. And from there, it kind of has mushroomed out to other departed souls have come through for other people that are in the house, both part of the Ghost Guild and even some of our events that we sponsored. People have come through from visitors that have come to the house. The rods themselves, they give you a sense that it's not just in your head, that you're not imagining, because you're seeing a physical representation or manifestation of the spirits, because you're holding them and you know that you're holding them solid and steady, and they're moving. And you're like, okay, I am not moving these, and they're moving, and you can feel the vibration. So I feel that, those rods, the divining rods or dowsing rods, they actually pick up on those vibrations and on that energy. And for me, I can feel that in my hands. You can feel the vibration, you can feel that energy, and it's moving. And so when you ask a question, initially it was like you're waiting for the rods to cross for yes, or to, go wide open, for no. And as this has evolved, as I'm asking these questions and I'm talking with the spirits, I'm getting the answers in my head, and then the rods will follow up with no, that's a yes and no. So it's kind of evolving to where I've actually tested it. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this without the rods and see what the answers are. And then I'm going to use the rods almost as my confirmation, if you will. Does that make sense?
Oh, makes perfect sense. I have a question real quick.
Yeah.
Has someone ever said to you, you're moving them instead of they're moving themselves?
Nobody has said that to me. I know that sometimes you wonder, like, okay, are you moving them? These particular rods that I have, one, they're very long. They're probably, I don't know, a good 2.5 feet long. So they're exceptionally long, and they're just a solid piece of copper, like an L shape. And a lot of times you'll see dowsing rods, and they'll be the part that you're holding, the L part of it, if you will, is a loose piece, and the rod sits down in that, like almost like in a ball bearing, you know what I mean, where it can easily spin, and those just spin round and round in there. A solid piece, and they're sitting down in it. These are not that way. They're literally just a solid piece.
Okay.
Solid piece of copper, so they don't spin. So when you hold them, I hold them pretty tight. To move them, you would be my hands move. My wrists would have to move for them to move.
Got it. Yes.
And so I'm holding them tight. In fact, often I have to stop because I start getting cramps in my hands because I'm squeezing them sometimes too tight. Okay, just a little bit, So I'm letting loose, and they're literally spinning in my hands. So you would be able to, you would see if I was moving them.
Makes sense. Yep.
Nobody's ever asked me the question. The answer to your question, no one's ever asked me that question, because it would be pretty obvious if they were moving, because you would see the little movement in my hands, and I'm literally not moving my hands at all. They're spinning in my hand.
That's amazing. The only reason I asked that was because I've heard other people question it to people that are using a dowsing rod.
Right.
Those people actually put them in the hands of the doubter, the skeptic.
Yes. Right.
Because then it brought those people into belief.
Yes.
But with yours, it sounds definitely like it would be easy to see if you were moving them.
Right. And the ones that are, to me, the ones that I've used that were loose, and I've never used too many of them. I probably count on two hands how many times I've ever used them prior to the ones I have now coming to me. They spin so easily that it would be hard for me even holding them going, is that me moving a little bit? You know what I mean? Because if you moved a little bit, they'd literally just spin because they spin so free. It would be, they spin really free, where the ones that I have, they don't spin free. I mean, it's hard. And I've actually given the rods to other people and said, here, you try it. And it's interesting that some people don't move right away, and other people, they don't move right away for them.
That's really interesting.
Yeah. In fact, I just did it recently I had some relatives visiting from out of state, and they're interested in this kind of thing. And I was talking about the rods and showing them these rods because they hadn't seen them for a few years. And so I handed to them, and they were trying them as well. And they didn't move as easily for them. But again, it's new. And I think some of it is you kind of have to, I don't know what the right word is, but you kind of bond with them. I mean, you get comfortable with it. It's like doing something for the first time. You're holding them. Okay, am I holding it right? I don't know if that was it or what, but they don't always react the same for different people.
Well, that is interesting.
So, and some of this has to do with, again, are the spirits or whoever you're communicating with comfortable in talking with the person that's holding the rods?
The reason I asked that was because I had seen that question come up, and we had never talked about that.
No,
but you and I, when we talked about your dowsing rods, I knew what they were. I don't understand dowsing rods because I haven't ever seen many of them. I didn't know that there was a ball bearing or something on them that would make them twirl. I thought they were always a piece of
some reason, maybe it's not a ball bearing, but it's like it's thin, solid copper or whatever.
Yeah.
Some that I've seen that the other members of the Ghost Guild have, they purchased them, and they are like a copper tube with the copper L shape going down into the tube, so that you could hold the tube and then let them spin totally free, like you're not holding a handle. You're holding the tube, and then it sits down in the tube, and it lets them spin really freely, which makes sense, because then they would pick up on, if there's any vibration moving them, it's easy for them to move. The ones I have are older than dirt. I mean, you can tell they're really, really old. So, they're just an L-shaped solid piece of copper. And I think that's part of the reason maybe that they were longer, for them to use them even to find water or whatever they were originally used for. If they're picking up on that energy or electromagnetic energy or whatever it is that's making them react, I think of them as an antenna almost, I assume that the reason they were longer is to take more for them to move. That doesn't probably make a lot of sense.
No, it makes a lot of sense. Yeah, it does. I don't doubt this. I believe, I've heard you talk about it. Harry Wilson talked about them, and Rosella Rao has talked about them. You've got at least two witnesses that I know who have confirmed this is true.
Because sometimes, you don't even trust yourself. Like, am I getting this? And they will, with their abilities as well, they'll confirm things that I'm like, I'm getting this. And like, no, this is what I got. And I'm like, okay, so we're all getting messages different ways, but sometimes it's the same message. So it helps, because so much of this it's subjective. I mean, it's like, I feel this. I'm getting this answer in my head. It's not always a physical thing. That's probably the best part about the rods, is at least it's a physical thing that's moving. You're like, okay, at least it's not just I'm getting answers in my head. I'm getting a physical representation of that.
Oh, I agree. The physical really helps to confirm. Otherwise, I don't, I've had things happen, and otherwise you just don't know if it's you imagining something or if it's really true.
Right.
And I can't imagine what you do and not having some type of confirmation. So.
Yeah, I'm pretty much thinking, oh, you're crazy, Paul. You're mad.
You're not crazy.
Well, I don't know. I might be crazy, but.
Yeah, I don't think so. We could go through do you know what day it is, what year it is?
Give me the test. Yeah.
Yeah, give me the test.
Am I losing it?
Who comes to mind the most with you with the dowsing rods? And people that have just shown up that you're surprised about, maybe?
Well, initially, again, using these, my learning curve was in the Victorian House. So initially it was Lena and some of the past residents of the house that came through. We would use the rods at the end of, we had a night at the museum, where basically people would come in and we would tell them some of the stories and some of the things that happened in the house, let them do their own ghost hunting on their own. And then at the end, we'd reconvene and talk about what they experienced and what they saw. And then I would do a session with the rods at the end, and we would really try to talk to some of the residents of the house when we had the whole group back together. Because, some people have experience, some people don't. And it was kind of nice to regroup and share those experiences and then wrap it up with me using the rods to see if we couldn't collectively get some communication. Because I really feel like that, again, it has to do with the people that are there, and that energy of all of, everyone that's involved will affect, who comes through and how they come through. And while doing that, we started to have other people come through. Some of my past relatives, some of Harry's. And so since that point, we've done some sessions just with us and with people in the group to talk with the relatives that have passed on. Mm-hmm. Is that a real thing? Past? It can't really be a past relative. Relatives who have passed.
Got it.
Pretty much you're stuck. If you're a relative, you can't get rid of them.
Even when they've passed over or crossed over, right?
And you thought I wasn't crazy.
I still don't think you're crazy, but that'll probably make everybody think we're both crazy. Hey, I'm in good company then.
That's right. That's right.
That's how I feel. That reminded me when you told me all these people started coming. You've had that happen where you just have like a huge amount of spirits show up, right? Right.
And that's what's happened in some of these sessions. All of a sudden, we're trying to focus on, the residents of the house, or a couple of them, maybe Lena and, maybe some of her husbands, prior husbands.
We got to talk about her in a minute.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden we're getting Harry's relatives or my relatives, or, and what I'll see is like they come with people that are visiting. And again, the rods will literally point to a person saying, and I'll get the message like their relative or someone they know wants to come through and has a message for them. So it kind of evolved into this whole, okay, there's people on the other side that want to give messages to people that are there, because like, wait, you can hear me, and they're open to this. They're here doing a ghost hunt. And so all of a sudden they want to talk to their relatives. And so the rods will go, it's you. And I'm like, okay, they're telling me that they want to talk to you. I'm not sure who this is. And so it's been babe in the woods. I'm like, okay, it's you, and I don't know who you are, but there's somebody here. It's a male. They want to talk to you. They're saying something about this. And I've been amazed that usually what happens is they're confirming to me. They're like, I really wanted so-and-so to come through. Often that's wanted somebody. So they came in with a preconceived idea that I really want my grandmother or my aunt or someone to come through. And so they've asked them to come. And I truly believe if you ask someone who's crossed over or your spirit guides or anybody, if you need them, you ask them to come, they'll come to you. So I think some people, they've done that and they come. You literally, like you said, they'll come. And then meanwhile, the next person beside them or someone else or my relatives will be like, hey, like, nah, okay, wait a minute. One at a time, and literally you'll be like, noise. You're like, okay, there's multiple spirits talking at the same time. And I am struggle with one. I can't do 6, at the same time. So it's kind of eye-opening for everybody. Then I'm like, okay, and the reps are like, this person and this person, and we've had the same thing happen even with the residents of the house, because when we sit down to talk to them, I think the others have shared with you, it's like going home. When we come into the house, they all like, hey, you're back. And the room will start to fill up with different people that have an association with the house.
Oh, that's so good. That is so amazing to me.
It is amazing. That's a good word for it. We're all still amazed by it. It's like, this is so cool, and it feels so good because we're very lucky. It's a very positive, loving type of thing. It's like coming home, and that's how they make you feel when you walk in the house, and that's what they want. But, as far as other people that are visiting the house and when their relatives or friends or whoever come through, it's usually just to give them a message that they're okay. That's 9 times out of 10, that's the message. Or it may be a specific thing, but often it's more, they want them to know that they're okay, and often it's, more recent situation. It seems like someone who's recently passed, I don't know if they're closer or what it is. I don't know the right words to describe this, but they come through more easily. Because they want to, I think. Usually because they want to give that message that it's okay. I'm okay. I'm on the other side, and, it's love and light and happy, and don't worry about me. Because they're worried about us. I really think when they first cross over, they're worried about us because they see us in pain because they're gone, and they're like, but I'm not gone. I'm
right.
better. I'm whole now.
That makes sense. And I do believe they are whole once we pass from this earth. Because I told this to Harry, we have a soul that lives in this physical tent. Yeah. But I believe that we are who we are on the other side too. I just think that we're housed in this clay, as it were.
Right.
It will stops us from doing all kinds of things. One is, being free, and it also causes us pain, right?
Right.
So I think that you're right that people do that. My mother did that in her own way. Let me know, because I was very worried about her. I haven't heard from her since, but all I had to hear was the one time, and, I knew she was okay. She just literally did it through my brother-in-law, and he didn't even know he was doing it. I think I told Harry this, and so if my listeners have heard this before, oh well, they'll hear it again. She had passed away. I was worrying about her. I was standing like in my dad's house, in this forward bathroom, and I was in there and just talking, hoping she's okay and praying she was okay. And anyway, I come out and my brother-in-law starts singing Camptown Ladies. Do you know that song? Camptown Ladies, sing this song.
Yes.
Do-da, do-da. My mother loved that song. And for him just to burst out in song at a funeral time, right? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It was just the oddest thing, but I knew exactly what it was.
Oh my gosh.
I know. He just went into this song for no unknown reason. I mean, for no reason that I could come up with, except that I was being told my mom was happy and she was doing good.
Oh, wow.
And she had had such a terrible life on this earth. Yeah, to me, it was like, okay, thank you.
Yes. Yeah.
So I have one last question.
Okay.
Actually, now I have 2 last questions, but I'm going to ask you about the resident spirits of the Victorian house, and mainly Lena. I have heard about her before.
Okay.
And so anyway, I heard about her before, but I didn't know she had a bunch of husbands. When you said her husbands, how many husbands did Lena have? Lena was a character from what I've heard.
She was a character, and I am not the historian. So, okay, there's my disclaimer. So if I, don't shoot me.
I won't.
Because I'm sure Harry and those that are listening will be like, oh, you got that wrong. I believe she had at least 3. There was 2 that I can think of. So, and because those 2 reside actually often in the basement. She'd had more than one husband, and she sometimes got taken advantage for her of her money. They used her money. One of them was an inventor, and so she had more than one. And I don't know, she wasn't good at picking them, or they were better at picking her.
Well, back in that day, because when was that? 1900s sometimes?
Yeah, it would have been, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think back when Yeah, when she was around, you had to be married almost to be part of society.
Right.
So you'd almost say, okay, he wants to marry me. Yeah, I guess I better marry him,
Yes.
And then because she had money, of course
they did. And yeah, they used her money,
Mm-hmm.
and she ended up without any money in the end, that was that part of that. And it kind of became a little bit of a recluse, and there's stories about her mowing the grass in the dark with a flashlight.
Oh my, yeah.
So she just kind of had a rough life.
Yeah. And she's there now though, and she seems to be happy.
And I think she's happy. Yeah. She's definitely there now and spends a lot of time just making sure that everything is the way it's supposed to be. She was the longest resident of the house,
mm-hmm.
and lived there for the longest period of time.
So she probably thinks it's her house, right?
Well, it is her house.
Well, yeah. I know, right?
Just ask her. Yeah, she'll tell you.
Just ask her. She'll tell
Yeah, I was here the longest. It's mine, and I was the last one here. But until because after that's when it was, sold.
Oh, I didn't realize that part. She was the last resident there before it was sold.
Before it was sold, and they kind of tricked her. And my understanding into going like to the dock. She ended up in a retirement type of situation where they get her out of the house because she was literally living in like 2 rooms in the very back of this 6,000 square foot mansion or whatever. She got to the point where she was just living in a couple of rooms because she couldn't afford to obviously heat the whole thing, and they had to get her out of that house.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was going to the doctor or what it was. Then eventually the house was then put up and sold at auction, and that's when the Historical Society bought it in this, I want to say 70s.
Wow. So she was actually there
up until
the 70s? Oh my gosh.
I believe yes, well, because we found it at that point. So up until about that point.
So how old was she when she passed from here?
I'm not the historian.
I know. We'll find out later.
Yeah. Harry is so much better at this, Harry and Mark.
Oh, yeah, Mark. I haven't met Mark phone, but he let me use the picture of the little girl, which I thought was so neat, that I could put on my website or put up when I was doing Harry's first interview.
Right.
So, another great interview with you.
Oh, thank you.
I am really excited that you would come back and do this, and I hope we can do it again because I have a feeling there's more even that we can talk about. The Victorian House is like a treasure trove. I don't feel like you and Harry and Rosella have even scratched the surface on what's going on there. Anyway,
I think you're probably right. Like you said, we're just getting a slight taste of it,
I do believe that. And someday I plan to, or no, I don't know if I plan to, but I want to go see this and be there and see it. And meet you guys in person. Yeah.
Yes, we have to do that.
It'd be fun. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Marianne.
If you enjoyed this podcast, I encourage you to share it with others you think would also be interested. If you'd like to know more about me, go to MaryannPoll.com and or authormasterminds.com/MARY-ANN-POLL. Until next time, may the wind always be at your back, the sun on your face, and the good Lord walk beside you.